Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Micah Hamilton, and we're back with the Epigenetic Performance Series. And I'm with Dr. Kathryn Guylay again. We did a short about her nonprofit work with nutrition and children. And so you can refer back to that if you are coming in fresh to Dr. Guylay today from you can just go back to that. Sorry. my brain got a tiny bit off track, but I think we're all that way right now. But Dr. Kathryn Guylay has a PhD in natural medicine, and it's super cool because this is really healing without the use of pharmaceuticals, and it's using the body's own innate intelligence to heal itself. And so Kathryn has such a varied background from crazy big business world endeavors to nonprofits to, this beautiful new kind of use of natural medicine to inform complex systems approach to health and well-being. And of course, she's one of our scientific advisory board members, as well as really kind of leading our Appear Academy, which is an epigenetic performance academy, to bring in this complex systems precision performance approach to health and well-being. So welcome, Dr. Kathryn Guylay. We're going to talk today in part about a book that you wrote. And the book is called, I'm going to put it up here so everybody can see it. It's Mountain Mantras, Wellness and Life Lessons from the Slopes. And Dr. Guylay has graciously put this book for free on her website, makeeverythingfun.com/resources. And so, Kathryn, I'd love to dive into, your inspiration for creating this book. I know that it's about inspiring us to tackle life's challenges. And this is certainly a perfect time to talk about mantra and how important it is to really live and embody positivity and a beautiful, connected, and loving nature with ourselves and with others around us, and the planet, of course. And so, welcome. Thank you. Tell us more.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hamilton. It's such a pleasure to be with you today and with our audience so that we can provide some inspiration and some actionable tips on how we can make the most of this time. It is an interesting time for sure, but there's a lot of opportunities that it presents. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I will mention that at that link, the makeeverythingfun.com/resources, there's all different kinds of resources there. I've put the Mountain Mantras book under wellness because there are a lot of wellness tips in there. But yeah, so where can we start? We could start with my background sort of running through the halls of the Chicago Medical School, where my dad was a chairman of 2 departments, and sort of how that led me down the path of that's the traditional medicine model, and sort of where I saw some opportunities for improvement in terms of really looking towards the body, like you were saying, and harnessing the innate healing powers that we have within ourselves. And that's what natural medicine is about. It's not about like wishing good things to happen. It's actually about taking meaningful steps, being a partner to our body and mind, body, spirit, and allowing us to become the best versions of ourselves, but also to protect ourselves when we are under a great amount of stress, like the world is experiencing right now. And there's enough good messages out there, and we're going to be part of that, to really have a call to action to people to really, this is a time, to take care of yourself, to take care of others, and to use this time as much as possible to be a positive reset for the world and also for all of us as individuals.
Oh, for sure. And you were talking, you referenced your dad and the medical school, and I know that you began and almost completed studies to be a provider. Can you share with the audience what made you step away from that at such an advanced level of training?
It's interesting because I was always pushed as a kid to become a physician. With my dad on the staff there at the Chicago Medical School, I could have actually gone to medical school for free. So go figure, why would I not have done that? I actually went into business, and that's that whole background that I had working with some of the largest companies in the world and understanding all of the opportunity for improvement there is in that sector, in corporate wellness, to really take those organizations to a higher level, to a more well level, to a more conscious level. So that's one piece. As far as after my business experience, and I'm still in the business world, but I've always sort of been in that world and then the nonprofit world. And then I thought, hey, life is, sometimes interesting how it either circles back or it spirals and we go up, but sometimes circle back to things. And I have been very interested in I've been called to work on things, interestingly, from my family. So like when my kids were little and I heard that 1 out of 3 children will develop diabetes, I was like, I'm going to work on that. And I went back to school for 5 years and I got a certification in nutritional counseling. And so that was what my nonprofit, and still does today, that was what it was focused on. Now, interestingly, my daughter, who was born in the year 2000, she's now in a generation where mental wellness is an issue. And there's an extraordinary, unprecedented amount of anxiety, depression, and other mental issues in that age group. And so I was called again by a compassionate, looking at my family and looking at the community around my kids and saying, hey, I want to get involved in that. So I chose the professional counseling, and I enrolled at Northwestern University, and I was going to be a licensed professional counselor because I wanted to have a role in helping that generation, and of course other generations, with those issues that they were facing. Now, Dr. Hamilton, I will tell you, I decided it was a very difficult decision, and I took a break for a while before I actually eventually dropped out and then pursued the natural medicine side of things. But that track is about pathology. And it's I had trouble really, because language, as we know at Apeiron, is so important to the complex human system that we are. The language of putting a label on somebody and saying you are that, and that becomes them, and they embrace that, and it's actually a negative thing, just went so against the grain of the system in my body that I sort of struggled through it. I struggled through some of my classes, and I got to the point where basically I had a course where all we were doing is our text for the course was the DSM, the diagnostic manual for mental illness. And I thought at that point, this was the signal, and how I felt every morning when I woke up, that was the signal that it was time for me to shift. So I'm not saying that I don't absolutely adore, appreciate, and think that is, the therapist, psychologist, that whole field, psychiatrist, there's an absolute role there. But I'm a big fan of allied health practitioners working together with the client. I don't even use the word patient, with the client as a co-creator, and everyone working together to support that client in a positive way so that they can make positive change. So I believe in pulling in a therapist when needed. I believe in pulling in the MDs and chiropractic, like whatever we need, we can pull together. But it's about an allied model, which would be my dream going forward in this world.
And that's what we're creating, right? Apeiron's complex systems model is that, right? We all fall on a very wide spectrum, anywhere from unbalanced to enhanced. And to have the opportunity to cross that spectrum in this complex systems lens with collaborative work in all industries. And that's interesting, right? We need all industries in health and well-being, not just medical providers who are providing sick care. Yes, the 20% of the people in the US that are sick, that require that. Thank goodness we're ready for them. Well, sometimes we're not, but we're doing our best from that perspective, and we will continue to get better. But for the 80% of people who do not have sickness and who don't want to go into that 20%, that's where now all the focus can go toward thriving and flourishing and just really a rich human experience that doesn't include broken. So let's look at how mantra, the technology of mantra, right? It's been around from the ancients, how that technology really works in our lives. I know you had just some really funny things in your book. Talk about the book and the use of mantra for health and well-being.
I will. I'm so excited to get into that. I just want to say one more thing about that allied practitioner model and Apeiron. So imagine a world, Micra, where in that system that we just talked about, one of the first things we do is we get genetic testing for each of our clients, and every person has an idea. And again, it's not about labeling, because we just said that. It's about saying, this is your beautiful, perfect as it is system.
Yes.
And here's ways that we can modify through epigenetics, over the genetics. We can modify through nutrition and lifestyle, and looking at hormones, looking at detoxification patterns, all of that. I mean, when I start to talk to people about Apeiron's core, kit for epigenetics and what it provides to people in terms of information, and again, that positive information, it doesn't diagnose, it doesn't label, it doesn't scare people. It really, it empowers people to say, hey, I can make the most of the, amazing raw materials that I'm made up of.
Yes.
And I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to say too, going back to the Chicago Medical School, that my dad was part of the team that renamed that medical school the Rosalind Franklin University of Health Sciences. Rosalind Franklin was the woman that was on the team. It was Cricks and I'm now Watson and Cricks that got the Nobel Prize, but it was Rosalind Franklin that actually was working, with the radioactive technology, to identify the double helix. But it's just interesting how if we are aware and can keep an eye out and stay tuned to patterns in life, you will see ripples. And so for me, this whole genetic thing is a ripple. But I think going forward, it's so exciting, to talk to my dad today and say, this is what all the work that has been done is building towards. It's building towards giving people empowering information that they can act on and become, the best version of that complex system that they are.
To remember that we are the technology, as your doctorate is dedicated to, and that when we align with our innate intelligence and the intuitive nature of us, we know how to be human, and we know how to be connected, and we know how to self-heal. And so that is what's coming, and it's here now. And it's really getting that adopted across the U.S. as the healthcare system for the U.S. and indeed the healthcare system for the world, because we don't have to be sick. We don't. It's just not a prerequisite of the human experience. Okay, let's switch to mantra.
Absolutely. Oh, so there are 6 mantras that I wrote about in my book. And the premise for my book was, after this whole, management consulting career and the growing the nonprofit to 34 states, my husband and I and our 2 kids and animals decided to move out to Sun Valley, Idaho, where we could experience a different life, because we were under a lot of stress, and we felt that our kids were under a lot of stress and a little overscheduled, and we wanted to kind of change things up. So we came out to Sun Valley, and I didn't know how to ski. And so I had to learn how to ski. And I know. And as an adult, it's interesting because you intellectualize what a kid would just do viscerally. And what I saw is that there's so many parallels to this process of skiing that absolutely flow into wellness and to life. So I wanted to give that context. We might not even get to all the mantras, but I'll start with one, which is the first mantra, which is change your lens on life. And it kind of has to do with the fact that we put goggles on when we ski. And what it has to do with is it's all just about the perspective that we have and how that translates to how we experience the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make that very relevant to what's going on today with the coronavirus and how people can view this experience. So, again, it's like we could have this lens on, and in skiing, it's like they can be foggy and that can mess up your skiing. They can be scratched, and it's very important to have a proper way to view your perspective, so you can do your best job on the mountain and be a safe skier. In life, we need to think about the lens that we have on. If we have a lens that's going to allow us to see the death rate and the doubling of the cases rate and the fear and the need to hoard because of scarcity, that is a lens that we have chosen to put on. And I would like us to all take a deep breath and say, okay, I have a choice to change my lens on life. And when I'm feeling that in my body, I'm a very somatically based practitioner. And when I'm feeling that fear, a lot of us feel fear in here in this area. We can say, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to press the reset button. I'm going to put on a different lens, and I can see instead, well, this is an incredible opportunity to reach out to my neighbors. My mom lives in a condo association, and I was talking to her on the phone every day. Well, I've been talking to her a lot, and she's like, oh, this is really fun because I don't really know a lot of the people in my complex, and this has given me an opportunity to, because they have an email list, to to reach out to people or to call people because they're an older community. What do they need? Do they need resources on places that are delivering? Should we put together a driving service? So the lens that we put on that allows us to experience a higher version of whatever's going on. We cannot impact, we cannot affect what's going out there, right? We can only affect the way we view it. And so, examples are, how can I help? How can I manage the physical distancing, but not necessarily be socially distanced? Like right now, I feel very connected to you, and I know our audience is going to be connected to these words. So we don't have to be isolated depending on how we view the situation. Another thing is, my kids, they're very responsible, and they're absolutely practicing the social distancing, and it's hard for the young people to do that.
Sure.
And a lens that they have given me that I've shared with others, especially my parents that tend to, they're a little concerned about what's going on, is my son was like, wow, the CO2 has gone way down in China, and in certain parts of the world people are seeing the mountains for the first time because the smog is clearing, and certain parts of the world people are seeing birds flying across the sky. And my daughter, who's a huge animal person, was talking about the clear canals in Italy and Venice, and the dolphins, and so it's like, I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna and make light of the situation. I'm saying that we can affect our human system by focusing on those things because those make us feel good. And they actually do affect us from a scientific level. We're affecting our cortisol levels, and cortisol is an immune system suppressant. So if we can control our own stress, we're actually strengthening our immune system, which is what we need right now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. And I love that. I get tingles when I hear you talk about all of the incredible things that are positive. I look forward to when this is said and done and we're stronger through it. Our systems are at a much more aware position than they are now, right? More beneficial as a whole, to statisticians really doing the diligence on the total ROI of this event, right? Yes, we're going to have the sadness and we're going to grieve, but we're also going to sit in joy for the new opportunities that we're creating. And so that part of it so touches me. I don't want to break down and have to wipe my face. What else?
Tears are good. Oxytocin. I'm gonna skip to mantra 3, which is zoom out for the best view. And I'll start with sort of how this came to me as a mantra. And mantras are things, by the way, that are meant to be repeated so that you can integrate them. And so a lot of times I will say to myself, zoom out for the best view, zoom out for the best view. It's something that allows us to, to get integrated on multiple levels. What it means in skiing is basically, I can tell you when I go to my ski class, I have this wonderful women's ski group that I belong to, and I just go once a week. I squeeze in skiing with a professional life, and it's very fun to be able to do that. And it's such a privilege. But I'll tell you, when I get to the bottom of the lift, where I'm in the trees, physically, and actually quite, it's literally as well, because I am in my to-do list, and I'm like, I got to do that. And I'm maybe swirling a little bit. Maybe the default mode network of my brain is kind of, taking over a little bit. So zooming out for the best view is kind of like that experience. There's one lift in Sun Valley where I live where it's 3,400 feet climb vertical, and it's about 10 minutes to get up. So I can tell you there's a shift in my body, my mind, body, spirit system. The bottom, I'm a little default mode network. I'm a little rumination. I'm a little anxiety, little cortisol, adrenaline. Get to the top, and it's like we're above the tree line. I can see mountains in every direction.
Oh,
I can see how whatever I was thinking about at the bottom is just not that important,
yes.
right? In the long run, it's this more expansive thing
Mhm.
that touches me and my system. And so I really focus on that when and anyone can do that. And you can look, if you're near a horizon, you can zoom out for the best view there. You can even lie down on the ground and look at the sky. So you don't have to be in the mountains to do this. The water, the expansive water views is another one. But the idea here in the context of what we're going through today is that, yes, just like you said, Micra, grief and sorrow are part of what we're going through, and we're not downplaying that. But when we feel that, we have to be aware of how that's going to affect our systems. And by the way, we should welcome any and all feelings. So if we're feeling sad, if we're feeling grief, and we're feeling sorrow, let that in and welcome it, accept it, integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point we need to go beyond that, and that's what the zoom out for the best view is. And maybe sitting in a contemplative state where we can get out of the beta brainwaves and into the alpha and theta, and really say, what could this bigger view be about? Does the world need a reset? What does this mean for the bigger thing? And how can this affect maybe my relationships with others, and how I act in the world, and how I contribute in the world? And I'm not giving anyone any answers. I'm just inviting people to take the time to zoom out and see what happens.
Yeah, and our internal contemplation, we do have the time now to do it, and we can choose to do it, and we can design our now and our now moving forward on purpose, with purpose. And I don't know that as a collective we've had this opportunity to do so. Right. And so I certainly invite everybody to take whatever time is available to them, even if it's just 5 minutes on one day, to begin of what is my new view, lens on life, what goggle set am I looking through, and to peel back. When we do breath training in performance, it's really essential that as you're doing these things and pushing your system to air hunger, that you take your lens and you pull it out, so that you're not tunneled down as you're performing. You're like this. It actually helps the system to regulate the oxygen utilization better. And so I love that analogy of zooming out. Always stay way back here as opposed to down in the weeds or down on the snow.
Yeah. Well, if there's ever a time, if a listener or viewer does not have a meditation or mindfulness practice, if there's ever a time to start or to grow it or just to commit to it, the time is now. I urge you gently and positively to really think about that. I know I've deepened my practice tremendously in this time. It's kind of like, whoa, this is amazing. So that's part of it. And I will say in the appendix of Mountain Mantras in the book, I have a whole set of yoga poses that support each mantra.
Oh,
and
nice.
I have meditation practices that are super short. There's just 3 poses for each mantra, and there's a meditation practice that's super short. So I'm inviting people to just take baby steps towards this goal of becoming more mindful and have a meditative practice during this time.
And so in the appendix, and it's basically a 6-step, right? Sort of around moving more into awareness, moving more into the moment. And you've already put it all together. So people don't have to do anything except go, okay, I'm going to do this. And it doesn't take very long, right? And so it gets you into a rhythm, it gets you into contemplation. Your awareness has an opportunity to grow and sit out in this nice new place. And in that place also, the mind opens and things pop in, the ahas, the gamma spikes run through the brain, and you go, oh, I can do that and I can do that. And then creativity begins to rise, and we get very, very excited, and in a very different state of being very quickly.
And I invite people to, when they get into a contemplative state, if they want to have a little notebook next to them, because you're right, Micra, these downloads will start to come. It's so cool. I know you experience this all the time. And I've recently started to as well. And it's so fun to know that we're not alone.
Right.
I do believe in Jung's, collective consciousness. And so to be able to tap in that and to say to ourselves, I don't have to figure this all out myself. I don't have to have all the answers. No. There is a collective conscious that can help me. I just have to tap into that spot, the gamma spikes that Joe Dispenza talks about in his book. We can actually save ourselves a ton of time. So we're talking about spending a little time to save a lot of time.
It is so true. And, one of the cool things about the epiphanies or the ahas with the gamma spikes is they guide you to the next action. And so this morning I woke up in Italy. Italy was in my field. All of my thought forms and memories were around the gifts that Italy have given me. My husband and I, we got married there. We get married in every country we go to, but on 11/11/11 on the full moon in Pisa, right? We got married in the chapel there. And, I have such incredible loving memories of Italy. It's such a rich culture, and the food and the people, and they're so loving, and they're going through a really challenging time as we are following them. Right. And so I was sending gratitude to Italy, to the land, to the people, because that was simply sitting there in my field. I have such growth from that country, from those people, from the food and the Mediterranean diet that I eat. And so I was able to contribute in a beautiful way to the heaviness of what they're going through right now. And so I encourage people to use those thought forms that come in to send whatever is available to them to send, whether it's energy or grace or love or compassion. They come for a reason, right? And so I love that you brought that up. Thank you.
And you know what, folks, if you're open to what Micra just described, I mean, wow, what an opportunity to travel even without leaving your own home.
Yes. And, I was speaking with Heidi Zuckerman yesterday, and she was talking about taking time to really dial into a piece of art and to ask 5 questions to become more aware of the piece of you that's in that makes you feel so good. And so I think that this is also that same thing of, can you pull up a beautiful documentary on nature in these places that are in, even in our own country right now, the places, and just send a little bit of goodwill. And, I say love because I think at the end of the day, that's what we are. But whatever you can get to, because it certainly feels very good to think about other people and to send goodwill wishes.
I love it. So Micra, on the time, do we have time? I can quickly go through 2 more mantras. What do you think?
We have 4 more minutes.
Okay. So I'm just going to introduce the mantra number 4, which is to plant your pole. So in skiing, you got to plant your pole. We talk about that as being an intention, because you can look down a huge run, say of Moguls, and it's like, I get super overwhelmed by that. But if you just plant your pole, go around the turn, plant your pole, go around the turn, you will get down the whole run. And so I want to emphasize to people that no matter how maybe you're feeling stuck, maybe you don't know where to start, it's just about starting and about planting that pole, making the first turn. You don't have to think about the 350 turns you have to make. You just have to think about that first one and then the next one. And so I wanted to emphasize that. And then the final one, it's a really funny mantra. It's called throw yourself down the mountain. And what that means, it's about getting our weight over our skis forward. Yes. Because when I was first learning, I was all scared. I was in the back seat. What that does is it accelerates and you get out of control and you crash. So when I was with some of my wonderful instructors, they would say, Kathryn, you got to throw yourself down the mountain. you've got to commit. And so what that translates for those watching this is that when you get into that contemplative state, when you get those aha moments, you might feel like, how am I going to do this? How are we going to manifest this beautiful vision that we were talking about in the beginning of this interview, which is a whole new world and way of approaching it? Well, you start by planting your poles and taking baby steps or small turns at a time, but you have to commit. You've got to get your weight forward on your skis. You've got to get your momentum, down and not hold yourself back. So people, if you're feeling called to do something to help in this world, to contribute, don't hold yourself back.
Yeah. I love that. And I always say that, let's go all in on life, right? There's a Rumi quote that talks about, believe that the universe is conspiring in your favor, right? Because it is, and we can trust that what will come of this will be amazing. Dr. Kathryn Guylay, thank you. I love you. And of course, as always, it feels like 2 seconds when we're together.
I know. I love you too. Thank you for all you're doing.
See you soon.
Okay.
Mwah.